Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And today's Doctor Who review is another The Trial of a Time Lord. This is the final chapter, part 4. Yes, indeed. This is the ultimate foe. The Doctor has been deemed guilty of his crimes and is about to be sentenced to death when the proceedings begin to be interrupted by a very familiar voice. Hello, Madam President. Yes, it turns out that the Master has returned and begins to reveal the Valeyards' deepest, darkest secret. It turns out that the Valeyard is none other than a dangerous and dark amalgamation of the Doctor, and when his secret is revealed by the Master, the Valeyard has no choice but to flee the court chamber. After all, the executed and the executioner cannot, of course, be the same person. The Doctor rushes off into the Matrix to fight his darker half. Meanwhile, the Master finds himself in a situation in which he is trying to defeat the Valeyard himself. The Master's explanation in the courtroom for why he has interrupted the proceedings and explained the Valeyard secret is because, although he hates anyone such as the Doctor, he hates people who try to be the Doctor's foe as well. After all, he is the Master, and you will obey him. So yes, the Doctor goes racing after the Valeyard into the Matrix. Meanwhile, Melanie Bush begins to plead with all of the Time Lords to go in and help him, because the Doctor can't do it alone. The Doctor then points out that the Valeyard almost killed every single Time Lord in that chamber due to a bomb he had labelled in the Matrix. If it wasn't for the Doctor interfering and getting in the way of the Valeyard, every single Time Lord would have been slaughtered in that chamber. However, whilst the Doctor was in the Matrix, he found himself facing lots of different challenges. The very first one being a very simple one that the Doctor could soon deal with, quicksand, which, because it's all in the mind, all the Doctor had to do is relax. However, when the Doctor finds himself on a plague street back during the Fire of London, he begins to get creeped out by more illusions of the Valeyard. It turns out that the Valeyard has been disguising himself as a kind of clerk, and the whole time has been playing tricks with the Doctor. The Doctor eventually manages to disarm his bomb. However, the Valeyard managed to get away. It's unclear what happens to the Valeyard after this story. Well, at least until Big Finish. But it's very clear in this story that the Valeyard's time as meddling with the Doctor's life is currently over. The Doctor is then reassured by the Madam President that Peri is not dead at all. Instead, it turns out that she has gone off to marry King Yrcanos and are living very happily together on his planet. The Doctor then goes off for more adventures in time and space, whilst the Valeyard reveals himself to the camera at the very last moment. Now, for anyone who's wondering what happens after this, well, of course there is a time gap on the TV show. However, Big Finish has done a great job at essentially filling the gap with a story known as The Last Adventure. The Last Adventure, very similar to this, has a couple of installments, but essentially leads up to the Sixth Doctor finally regenerating after falling off of an exercise bike. But back to the Trial of a Time Lord, the ultimate foe. What did I think of this story? It's a very worthy story title, however I do feel like it's misplaced with the Valeyard. I feel like it perfectly symbolises someone such as the Master. However, of course, because it's due to this story and the timeline, I can understand what the purpose of it was for this story. But plot-wise, what did I think of this story? It's very greatly paced, this one, and I feel like it has some very strong elements. For instance, the Plague Street and the Doctor seeing a lot of illusions, and Savalon Glitz not really wanting to stay around, being too worried about getting drowned in his own kind of barrel, is a very, very common thread in this story. And I feel like the threat of the Valeyard definitely is equal to the Master to a certain extent. However, his vanity for the Doctor's kind of ideals and some of the ways that he says that he deters the Doctor is a very subsequent irony in this story, because the Valeyard is so alike to the Doctor that even if he is a dark incarnation of the Doctor, he fails to realize the upper hand that the Master has over him is the Master is nothing like the Doctor. So overall, I've got to knock a point or two off and give this story at least an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next Doctor Who review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, and have an incredible night, you beautiful people.